And mix up the concrete. It's wet. See all the stuff here underneath the path. But I'll tell you. We don't have a float here. We switched propane tank companies, actually propane suppliers, for heating the house here, and this is where their old tank was. And the problem with that was the ground's a little bit unstable here, and the tanks kind of sink and whatnot. And I decided that we would put in a concrete pad in this spot here, and the propane company, the new one, is on the left side of the screen with the tank that is still there, and I decided to put a concrete pad underneath in this spot here, and then the new propane tank company can come and move their tank over to the new spot here. So I did this for a couple reasons: to help stabilize the tank itself, and then I also did it so that we do not have to weed whack underneath the tank. It's kind of a pain weed whacking around this thing. It's a big, this tank I think is 10 or 11 feet long and 3 feet wide, and you have to weed whack that entire area, and it's more work, and I'm just trying to make things easier for us around here. Any amount of less work that we do is better. So this concrete pad I think is going to be a great thing all around. One, to stabilize the tank, and two, so that we don't have to weed whack underneath it. All we have to do is around the edge of it, which is much, much easier than the whole thing. And plus, this line here just went right into the ground, and the problem with that is the weed whacker hits it all the time, and I'm always kind of worried about eventually slicing through it with the weed whacker twine. I know it's not likely to happen, but we've weed whacked around some of the posts around here enough that we've actually worn away the corners of it, and I don't really want to have a propane leak here, so I'm just kind of digging this out with the 1955 Ford 850 with the Sherman power digger on the back, and that is the Cub Cadet 582 Special, along with the Jeep trailer that I'm putting the dirt into. And there's got to be probably close to almost 2 feet, well, probably a good foot or two of topsoil right here, so the digging was very, very, very easy. It was not difficult whatsoever, and I'm just kind of going down probably, I don't know, maybe 8 inches deep, and I'm just kind of trying to square things off now, because the pad is, if I remember correctly, it's 3 feet wide by 10 feet long. I don't think those tanks are 11. I think it's a 10-foot, 3 by 10-foot pad. And I'm just kind of squaring up the size. I dug it plenty deep, and everything seems to be going pretty good here. Next is gravel. I've got this hole dug here. It's about 6, maybe 8 inches deep, somewhere around there. And it was actually starting to fill up with water. We have had about 4 to 5 inches of rain in the past, I don't know, maybe 4 days, 5 days, something like that. So it's very, very, very wet around here, and this is all, for the most part, topsoil that I'm digging in, so it's really nice, easy digging. And you could have dug this, you could have dug it by hand, but we have the backhoe, so guess what we're going to use? We're going to use this. So the plan is to bring in a load of gravel, and we're going to take this is the copper line for the propane tank, and what I'm going to do is, since this is in where the concrete's going to be, we're going to have to build a form, just 2x4s, and pound them in. Probably screw them together too. And we're going to put a piece of conduit, maybe cut a piece of conduit, slip it around that, and then put it up through the concrete, and then that'll hold that line and keep it in place. And then if they need to remove the line for whatever reason, they could either just cut it here, put another flare on it, and put in another piece up to the tank. But the digging was real easy, and I'm surprised how much water it filled in. So I've got it looking pretty good right now, but next step is to bring in a load of gravel and gravel this up to within 3.5 inches of the top of the soil here, and then we'll get some concrete and mix up the concrete, and then pour it in and float it off and make sure it looks good. The Ford 850 is doing pretty good. We've really got to fix some leaks and stuff on this thing. I don't know that they're, well, okay, this cylinder up here is dry. This one down here is wet. This one especially is wet. You can see all the stuff around here. So the oil. That one's wet, and then these two are wet, and this one over here is wet, and this one's actually pretty good, but this one has a big nick out of it, so we need I'm thinking probably 4 cylinders here, one here, this one, and the same thing on the other side for the other pad. And we got to get some of these leaks fixed. I would like to also put all brand new hoses on this thing. It's still a great old machine. It's getting worn out a little bit, and the main boom cylinder needs repacked. But I'll tell you, this backhoe made this job real simple. So the next thing here is to just put a layer of gravel on top, and then we'll build the forms and then pour the concrete. Here's the picture I was talking about of how full this hole was, full of water. Like I said, we've had a lot of rain here lately. And we got some gravel in the hole now, so this is a few days later when things have finally dried out. So now what I'm doing is I'm putting this piece of, I think it's 2-inch Schedule 40 PVC pipe, and I cut it lengthwise just on one side with the table saw, and that has ripped it. I think I made 2 cuts. I opened it up a little bit so it wouldn't be so tight to fit this propane line over it. I am not disconnecting this thing. This is kind of the propane company's. This is their tank, and I don't want to be messing with it. So I just wrapped that piece of PVC pipe around there, and I used two hose clamps to secure it, and that seemed to hold just fine. It didn't leak really whatsoever. So now I'm just kind of straightening or smoothing out this gravel. I find out later, unfortunately, I needed more of it after I built the forms, but these are 10-foot 2x4s, and like I said, the pad is 3 feet wide and 10 feet long. So I'm just building the forms. I'm using my Milwaukee Impact and my Milwaukee drill, pre-drilling, and putting some 3.5-inch long outdoor deck screws, I think is what these are. But I'm just kind of building these forms and making sure everything's semi-straight. I only had to make, 1 or 2 cuts on this whole thing. The 2x4s came in 10-foot pieces, and I didn't have to make any cuts there, but I had to on these 3-foot sections. So I just kind of looped it around the propane line itself, and I'm just kind of building these forms. I'm making sure I'm building them pretty strong because we're putting in, I think I put like, what was it, 12 or 13 bags of concrete in here. So the forms obviously have to be pretty strong, but fortunately I made the ground pretty close to what the forms were, and I actually didn't really even stake this at all, and everything turned out pretty good. I didn't have anything shift or whatnot, but in case anyone's wondering, this is my Harbor Freight trailer. I have the camera on, and it's full of, I think I bought, was it 18 or 17? I think I bought 17 80-pound bags of concrete to do this. And here's where I'm adding in more gravel. I decided there wasn't enough, and even if I added, if I just put, if I just made the pad thicker, the problem with that is then I wouldn't have enough of concrete to pour this, and the last thing I want to have happen is I run out of concrete and then I have to go to the store again and buy some more bags. So all in all, this pad, it only costs, there's probably about 20 bucks in gravel, probably 20 or 30 in 2x4s, and then another, probably I think it was like $80 for the concrete. So say, I don't know, 125 bucks for this concrete pad. Oh, and I also had the rebar, so the rebar was probably another 50. So yeah, this pad was probably pushing probably 170, $80, somewhere around there, just in materials alone to pour this. But for us, it's a peace of mind that the tank isn't going to move anywhere, and we also don't have to weed whack it from here on out. So we're saving us time and effort, and it's just kind of making things a lot easier for us. So now I'm kind of tamping down the gravel here with a 2x4, and I spent probably, I don't know, 10 minutes doing this, maybe 15 at the most, just trying to tamp this gravel down. I did have some extra, and I had some high spots, so I figured if I tamped the gravel down, we could get it to the right level, to the right amount of gravel that we would need for this pad. And I wanted to mention, online there are some pretty neat concrete calculators out there that'll tell you how much concrete you'll need if you're pouring a slab, a cylinder, a sphere, a ball. I mean, there's all sorts of calculators out there that you can use to figure out how much concrete you will need. And the calculator I used was, you just Google concrete slab calculator, and it should come right up. And all you did was punch in the thickness of the concrete, the width of the slab, and the length of the slab, and it'll give you the correct amount of bags of concrete that you'll need in order to fill that slab. And it was pretty accurate with what I used. The calculator will tell you how many 80-pound bags you will need, the weight of those 80-pound bags. It will also tell you the 60-pound bags, so how many 60-pound bags you will need, how many 80-pound bags you will need, and the weights of both. So that was a pretty neat calculator. And then also online, I found out there is a rebar calculator too. So you can figure out how much rebar you will need for a project, and this one was pretty spot on. I ended up using 4 9-foot 6-inch pieces, and was it like 10? Might have been, yeah, I think it was 10 2-foot 6 pieces, because you don't want the rebar touching or going outside of the concrete because that'll rust it. So as long as that's inside the concrete, you are good to go. So they say to stay 3 inches in on all sides of the concrete with the rebar, so that's exactly what I did. So now I'm finally mixing up some of this concrete. I had to have electric out here to run the concrete, or to run the mixer. I had to have the wheelbarrow out here also, and my trailer full of tools and materials. Plus I also had the garden hose here for water. We picked up this cement mixer off of Facebook Marketplace. This is a 2002, if I remember correctly, Harbor Freight cement mixer, and this thing ran flawlessly, did not have any problems with it whatsoever. And in case you're wondering, that is actually the original color of it. The newer ones are orange and red, and this one is brown. So you see me adding water and adding in the concrete mix. I know I should be wearing a respirator whenever I'm doing this, but it was a somewhat windy day, and I just tried my best not to breathe when the concrete dust is in the air. Generally it would just blow away from me, so I kind of lucked out there. But we're just mixing this concrete up in that mixer, and I learned a couple tips here. When you are mixing this concrete, put the water in first, and then after that put in the bags of concrete, so that the concrete will not stick to the bottom of the mixer. I had problems with that in the beginning, and I just tried my best to not have that happen again, because then the mixer won't mix it. It's all just kind of a really thick mess down there, and you just have to put the water in first. And if I remember correctly, they said to put in, was it 3 quarts of water per bag of concrete, and I put in 2 gallons of the mix of the water first, probably a gallon and a half, and then I added 2 80-pound bags of concrete into the mixer, and then I turned it on with the handle vertical there, and then I put it on the first setting, which is a very light mix, and then as it gets more and more mixed, then I keep going lower with it, and that keeps it so it keeps the dust down and keeps it from sloshing out. And then unfortunately I had to have the wheelbarrow leaned into the mixer. I could not just put the wheelbarrow on the side. It was too high, so a little problem there, but I worked around it, and I'm just taking it from the mixer to the pad. Now, I know some people were wondering, why don't you just pour it right into the pad itself? And the problem with that is we're pouring on a corner, and that would probably, it doesn't get the concrete where I want it, so I'm just trying to get the concrete where I want it to be. I decided to pour the far side first and then work my way up to the front, or to the right side of the screen there. But you can see I'm trying to keep everything wetted down, because this concrete dust really kind of sticks to everything, and just kind of the same thing, rinse and repeat, right? But I'll tell you what, this little Harbor Freight cement mixer, we paid $100 for it, and it is worth every penny when you're doing jobs like this. Now granted, this is the first concrete pad I've ever poured in my entire life, from start to finish, from digging it to putting in the gravel to building the forms, putting in that pipe for the line, for the propane line, and pouring the concrete and buying everything. So this was definitely a learning experience for me, and it's kind of enjoyable. I don't know that I'd want to do it all day every day, but you know, for a couple jobs here and there. I really don't have any problem with it. So we're just, again, adding 2 bags and about 1.5 gallons of water. And I did eventually add in more water with the hose too, to try. I wanted this concrete to be kind of liquidy because this is a pretty big pad to pour by hand with the mixer and whatnot, but everything seemed to go pretty good. I'm just an amateur at this. I am not a professional. I'm your do-it-yourself guy. So now it's nice with this mixer. It's not super heavy. It's not on a huge trailer. You know, I can pretty easily move this thing around, and it's electric. So if you're pouring a basement pad, you can, or something in the basement or something, it's something indoors, you can pour it. You can turn this thing on and run it, and you don't have to worry about any fumes or anything. So I really like that it's electric. And it only pulls like, what was it, 2 amps or 3 amps? Something like that. It's not very much. I think it's maybe like 1.7 amps. And my little Harbor Freight 2-stroke generator could run this thing. So I could pretty much mix concrete anywhere you needed to, even if you didn't have electric there. So now I'm just, screening the concrete. I'm running a 2x4 over top of it to try to smooth things out. And this far side was starting to dry already by the time I had came back across it. I think for the next time what I do is get the wheelbarrow over there and, you know, try to get the air bubbles out of the concrete first, and then take the 2x4 over that far side so that that side will basically be done, and then all I have to do is keep pouring this other side. So this pad, I definitely learned a lot of stuff with it, a lot of stuff that I can take to the next pad that I pour. And the concrete pad is pretty much done after this. All I had to do was kind of scrape trowel it and really get it smooth. Although, to be honest with you, I kind of like the 2x4 look better than the trowel. It seems to be smoother than troweling it with a concrete trowel set. I bought that at Harbor Freight. Also, in case you haven't noticed, I really like Harbor Freight. Let's see, Harbor Freight cement mixer, Harbor Freight trailer. What else is Harbor Freight in here? Oh, the trowel set. For the most part, as far as I'm concerned, this pad is pretty much done. I went over it a few times with the 2x4, as you saw in the video, and I figured out we don't have a float here. All I have is I have these floats, this one and this one, and then this one here is an edge one, and then this is a set from Harbor Freight. There's one with a V in the middle here, and then you can, if you wanted the concrete, if it was going to crack, to crack in that spot. But this one here, I'm going to round over the edges so they're not sharp. Whenever this dries a little bit more, it's still pretty wet, and it's good enough. I might float it with one of these floats over here. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. So I hope everyone enjoyed this video. I am really glad we did this. The propane company can come and move their tank over, and obviously once the concrete dries, but I'm pretty pleased with this. So they say you're supposed to water the concrete pad after it's dried, and I've got a little low spot here, which I guess is no big deal, but they say to water the concrete because I guess it helps with curing. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do.
it's kind of a pain doing this, but come out here every couple times, every so often, and water it. Now, I don't know what's up with those spots, but I think I could have done a little bit better job at finishing this thing, but I've troweled it, smoothed it out, and then ran around the edges with it and put that nice beveled edge on it. And the last thing to do is to pull up these forms. I'm still half tempted just to leave them there and not be bothered with them. I mean, they're only going to turn into dirt, so. But we'll see. This is what the pad looks like. It's probably at least a week later, maybe even more, maybe 10 days, something like that. So they say you're supposed to water it. One website said, like, what is it, either 3 to 5 times a day or 10 times a day. So you're supposed to really water this thing a lot. So I'm trying to do as much as I can. We've had some rain and whatnot, but they say you're supposed to water it, so here I am.
We decided to pull these forms off, and they actually came right off of this pad. I was expecting them to stick, but I guess concrete doesn't stick real good to wood. But obviously it's a really tight fit because the concrete's right up against it. But all I did was just put the shovel underneath the corner and pried it right up. It came up really easily. So now I need some more dirt to fill around the edges, and I'm just kind of pulling in any extra gravel that came out from whenever we were graveling this. And I'm going to be cutting off, we put a piece of pipe down for the propane line, and I'm cutting that off.
The tank is on the pad here, and we just kind of slid it over from this spot here to the other one because he could not get his truck anywhere inside of here. As you can see, everything is incredibly wet. But we got it pretty much centered, and it looks pretty good, I've got to say. I'm very pleased with the way that this turned out. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video on how to pour a concrete pad for a 500-gallon propane tank, and it is full of, what are we at here? 80 psi. Pretty sweet. So thanks for watching. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and hopefully we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.